just so we can test it out real quick. Oh, God almighty.
Oy vey.
Oy vey.
Oy vey. So we gotta have some like really kinky music.
Wow. Wow, wow. Welcome to Only NerdyDads.
Welcome to Only NerdyDads. I am your co-host, Matthew, and joining me,
Patrick. Not a cop. By the way.
he is a cop. Don't let him fool you.
Not a cop, guys.
So, welcome to the official Nerd U podcast. We're Only Nerdy Dads. We're starting the evening off, and we're starting our podcast series off just to kind of get everybody to understand like comic books. And I'm sure everybody understands the funny pages and the comic books they walk into the shop and find now. But the one thing we really wanted everybody to understand was the fact that there are different eras to comic books. And some novice comic book collectors, more so than not, don't really understand the whole era thing. Mm-hmm. People start asking if they're looking into Golden Age or Silver Age books, and they have giant question marks above their heads.
And it's like, I can be honest with you. Probably a year ago, you'd ask me that question before I got back into comic books, and I would be one of those people. You'd be like, "Oh, Golden Age, yeah, that was like early comics, right?" But to me, early comics could be like 60s,
yep.
70s. But
what we were exposed to,
yeah, exactly,
early,
exactly. Well, I mean, you're older than me.
Oh, shut up! No, I'm not. I'm really not.
Look at all that gray.
Just for men. Reversed.
Only Nerdy Dads.
Only Nerdy Dads. So we wanted to take this time to be able to explain everything to everybody, so that way everybody kind of had a fair shake when they walk into not just our shop but any comic book shop. So, biggest thing anybody ever needs to understand is there are several different eras to comic books. First off is the Golden Age, followed by Silver Age, Bronze Age, and then our modern age.
We're gonna break that down.
Continue,
because all right. So let's start. Let's talk about this for a second. So, what do you consider the starting age of comics?
What do I consider the starting age of comics? I mean, obviously, it's the Golden Age.
Okay,
it's the first official recorded age of comics.
Okay,
started in the late 30s, ended up in the mid 50s.
But what year? The only reason I'm asking is because we all know it was Action Comics #1, Superman.
Right.
We all know that was the first comic. If you don't, now you know.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, sorry. Superman. But Superman was considered the first superhero. However, comics, and this kind of plays into it. So one of the things that we kind of do a little show and tell, is just a general idea of what comics used to look like. Now, granted, this is a newspaper clipping, but it kind of plays into this because you said this was what, 42?
That is from November 8th, 1942.
That's old.
Super old.
Super old.
My grandfather was serving in the Air Force. My grandfather was serving in the Air Force during that time.
And I love the Air Force, you know that. But so talking about this in 1942, so it started in 38. This is what, I mean, obviously unfortunately we don't have a Golden Age comic to show you guys.
Because I suck?
Nah, he doesn't suck. He has them all scored away in his house.
Hoarding all of them.
Yes.
Millions and millions.
Exactly. He's got like 4 grade PSA 9, not PSA, Jesus.
CGC 9.
CGC,
Action
cards, my bad.
Action Comics #1s. I got them shoved in my mattress.
Yes.
It's paying for the rest of my life.
Yes.
I'm only kidding. So, but back to a vintage Superman.
So, talking about this and talking about the first recorded comics, actually, were in the form of newspapers. So, like, this would be what you would see for a standard comic or a side strip or something like that. And depending on who you ask and how they look at it, there was a platinum age of comics.
So now I get to be underneath the learning tree. Tell me about Platinum Age of comics.
So the Platinum Age, once again, and all of this is subjective and based on like it's how you view things. So the Platinum Age started like in the late 1880s.
There were comics back in the 1880s?
In newspapers. And
that makes sense.
And it ran in the Platinum Age, in theory, ran all the way up to Action Comics #1. And Superman was considered the first superhero. That's when the golden age of comics started.
And now you know.
I got notes. No, but it's actually very interesting. It really is.
So most of the comics in the Platinum Age weren't even superhero based.
No. Superman was the first one. There would have been things like just like Peanuts and stuff like that. Just those kind of comic book strips.
Okay.
I think this one is.
Looks like Archie.
It does look like Archie, but it's not. It's the Willets.
Yep.
I've never even heard of that. You got it because of Superman.
Yes, I sure did.
So, so in Golden Age, that's when you see all the first appearances of your big ones. Right. You know, you got Superman, you have Batman, you have Wonder Woman, you have Captain America, and they gained a lot of popularity, especially Captain America during World War II for reasons. But then, like you said, the Golden Age goes until about 56. Once again, depending on who you ask, between 50 and 56 is when it, like the Silver Age took over. What is considered the first comic book that launched the Silver Age?
First comic that launched the Silver Age?
Yes.
I'm going to say something like Tales of Suspense, maybe Batman the Brave and the Bold.
Who is your favorite Flash?
Who's my favorite Flash?
Yes.
Never been asked this before.
I swear to God, I thought we had this conversation.
No.
This might backfire horribly.
Never had that conversation before. We're talking about like actual Flash, like Barry or Wally or... Dude, I'm partial, man. Barry.
So Barry Allen is considered to be, like when Barry Allen made his appearance, or his first appearance as Flash, that was considered the start of the Silver Age.
No kidding.
Yep.
So legitimately, that makes Batman and Superman the like super OGs of the Justice League. Yes,
but the Justice League wasn't made until later.
Right. They didn't come out to into silver, into bronze.
Mm-hmm. It was before that.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We'll get there. All right,
we'll get there.
I'm excited. I'm actually schooling you on something.
I'm telling you, right? Underneath the learning tree of Patrick. Welcome, everybody. Yes. Only Nerdy Dads. You'll never see this stuff anywhere else.
That's true. There's some other... Never mind. There's some late night Wednesday stuff going on.
Cowboy Cody. Keep that in mind.
Candy Corn
Keaton.
They're going to hate us. But yeah, so Silver Age started with that. But there's something else that happened in the Silver Age. And so we're going to flip this one around for a second. But I'm going to show you real quick. This.
Comic Book Authority.
Yes, the Comic Book Authority started with the Silver Age as well. There was a lot of worry about comic books and what they could portray and everything. In the 50s, the 60s, we know they were like, there was a lot of tension there because it was after World War II.
Right.
Everybody's, starting to build bombs and all that kind of stuff. So the Comic Book Authority laid out a set of rules. And they were a set of rules that made comic book companies self-governed. They were voluntary rules that all these companies accepted because they didn't want to get moderated.
Okay.
So that's what the Comic Book Authority is.
Is or was?
Was because yes, that is a true statement. Now, in my digging of all of this, I found a set of rules.
Did you now?
Yes, I did.
I'm super interested to hear this.
They are some interesting things.
Nice.
So there's a whole list.
Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. This is gonna be a bumpy ride.
So, and think about this, because when I was reading this, I was like, reading this and what comics used to be opposed to what comics are now, dude, they would be like flipping out. Like
we wouldn't have comic books right now.
We would not have comic books. Everybody be locked up. So
cheers to all the comic book creators out in the world today. Thank you very much. Frank Miller.
We'll get there. So the one of the I don't even know how many they are, but like one of the first ones is crime shall never be presented in such a way to create sympathy for the criminal.
God, the Joker would like.
Well, think about how many of those, like how many villains now are portrayed, like Magneto.
Sympathetic villains.
Yeah. Magneto's one. Joker is just insane.
Right. But
people
they still
gravitate. Yeah.
They still find that way to feel sympathy for the Joker.
And look at anti-heroes like Venom, Deadpool, Punisher, those guys. So
they all have a tattered backstory.
Exactly.
Yep.
So like
that's what draws me in, man.
Yeah.
That's why most of my favorite characters are all villains, because most of them have a tragic backstory that kind of drew them into what they were doing.
And I'm not trying to sound morbid, but a lot of us can relate to some of those, you know?
Very much so. Very
much. So the next one is scenes of excessive violence shall be prohibited.
So thus all the pows and bams and such.
Yep. That's where all that came from.
So did the Comic Book Authority bleed into the FCC at some point? Because, like, think about the old school, like, Adam West Batman show. A lot of the punches you never saw contact, and it was just covered up with a bam or a pow or something.
It's possible. It's possible. I didn't really get that far into it, but it's possible. But that makes sense though, because that was late 60s. So and Silver Age ran until the late 60s. Right. So it kind of fits.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And so next one, criminals shall not be presented so as to be rendered glamorous or to occupy a position which creates a desire or for emulation.
Catwoman's out.
Oh, we can go a lot of ways on that one.
Automatically, she's gone. I mean, there's just so much, but like, so think about like nowadays. Yeah, think about when you go to a convention now and the cosplays. There are more villain cosplays than there are hero cosplays. And we wouldn't have that if the Comic Book Authority had actually like ran things they want. Man,
but I guess I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing. I guess it kind of, to me, it might have been a good thing.
It gave artists back their freedom.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm saying like having the comic.
Oh, having them there.
Yeah, having the code there might have been a good thing because they got all that other stuff out of the way, and then got into the stuff that we love. Now, I know a lot of people. Let me take that back. I know a lot of people like the Golden Age and the Silver Age,
but I would feel the same in the sense that the Comic Book Authority through the years aged the same way that society did through the Golden Age of family and into everything else, through every era that the American family experienced. Comic books kind of had an ebb and flow with that as well. Yeah.
Well, and there's wait till I get some of these other ones.
Oh boy, here we go.
So policemen, judges, government officials, and respected institutions shall never be presented in such a way as to create disrespect for established authority.
So they didn't see crooked cops until like the Bronze Age.
Yeah, pretty much. Which I instantly thought Batman.
Oh yeah, because Gotham, dude. Like half the cops were crooked.
Yeah. So all scenes of horror, excessive bloodshed, gory or gruesome crimes, depravity, lust, sadism, machoism, and shall not be permitted.
Makes sense because we didn't start seeing any of those like creepy books or anything like that until what was technically the Silver Age of comics.
Well, it's a very different time back then too. Very different.
I mean,
time.
well, moms and dads slept in separate beds.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
You know, you can thank Lucille Ball for that, like actually making that mainstream.
That's fair. No comic book magazine shall use the words horror or terror in its title.
House of Horrors and like House of Terror and like Terror Magazine and all that, like those didn't hit until like mid to late Silver Age.
Because they were all,
and they became huge.
Yeah, because they were all, and that's the thing is like the companies started adopting these rules because they didn't want because like the government, they didn't want
to be the rule break. They didn't want to be the rule break.
So if they made them voluntary, it's like voluntary recalls. You know, you make them voluntary, the companies do it, so the government doesn't have to step in and make it official.
Right.
You know? Let's see. All lurid, unsavory, and gruesome illustrations shall be eliminated. This kind of goes back to the one above it.
Yeah, kind of.
Now this one's interesting. Inclusion of stories dealing with evil shall be used or shall be published only where the intent is to illustrate a moral issue, and in no case shall evil be presented alluringly.
I mean, like, all this makes sense. Like, so you got to think. So when in the golden age of comics, the comic books authority became super prevalent. Like that's when they started to take their stronghold.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to think about characters that were released when their grip started to loosen, mm-hmm. or when comic book companies dropped a set and decided they wanted to try. Mm-hmm. You didn't see characters like Mephisto and characters like that light until later.
And I think Dracula as well.
Yeah, Tomb of Dracula. You didn't see any of these characters that were provocative in any sense of form until later on.
So in every instance, good shall triumph over evil, or the criminal be punished for his misdeeds. So
at the end of every strip comic, the villain gets caught.
Yep.
Gets taken in by the police.
Yep. Go back and look at all the old Batman.
I mean, dude, we talk about that. We could talk about Dick Tracy.
Now, and I wonder if that's why, because, and I'm not trying to get morbid, but Batman never took any lives. You know, that's been his mainstay. I think that's changed.
But. Okay. All right. With that being said, back when his original mantra was Batman shall never take a life, he also said he would never use a firearm, and that dude had one holstered for a while.
Fair enough. That's fair. Gunslinger
Batman. Oh my God, Jim Lee, get on this, bro.
Or Tom McFarlane.
Oh, could you imagine them teaming up?
Could you because they have Gunslinger Spawn. Why not do Gunslinger? Like, what if we had
a Gunslinger Venom?
Or no. Bring Batman. I don't even know if they exist, but make it a Western.
There is a Western
really?
Batman. Yeah, dude. Elseworlds, bro. DC's got it. Like DC, they figured out the multiverse thing before anybody else figured out the multiverse thing.
Fair enough. Maybe check that out. That would be interesting.
I think there is a Western. Wayne? He has to be.
How does that even work? Oh, that's multiverse. Yeah, you're right. Yes, that's fair. We'll get there.
Versions.
Let's see. Yeah, we can worry about that. These are the middle ones are kind of the same.
Repeating the same things.
Yeah, but so this I actually found interesting. Scenes dealing with or instruments associated with Walking Dead, torture, vampires, and vampirism, ghouls, cannibalism, and werewolfism are prohibited. Werewolf by Night, Dracula.
Like all those characters came late.
Zombies. You know?
I love how they refer to it as Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And we got the Walking Dead.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man. Like I kind of understand what you're saying. It could be a double-edged sword, like their inclusion in the comic book industry. Mm-hmm. to put such restraint where they felt like they had to,
Mhm.
and then what it did for the industry when those hands got pulled back and those companies and those artists and storytellers got freedom.
Yep.
And they could do whatever they wanted.
Yep.
It sucks that really led into the 90s where nothing really happened, but
Well,
we'll get to that in a second.
We'll get there. That's one thing that we got. That's what, because we'll do that. We'll just start rambling.
Yeah, it's gonna happen, guys. Sorry.
But it's fun, So there's one in here about profanity, obscenity, smut, vulgarity, and words and symbols, blah 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 blah, are prohibited. Yeah, ABC doesn't even do that anymore. And this one, so you were talking about like lust and alluring and all that kind of stuff. Females shall be drawn realistically without exaggeration of any physical qualities. So I find that interesting because it was at one point a rule.
Yeah.
I say a rule, a self-governing rule, but it was there for a reason.
But everybody fell in line.
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody who released a female character during those years,
full like
there's
bodysuits,
almost full
that.
Bodysuit.
Yeah.
There was no midriff that was exposed.
Because even if you look at Wonder Woman, she's I feel like
she's in a onesie.
Well, but at one point she gets, she's got the skirt and all that, but it's like a bodysuit essentially. But even like she's covered up, like Black Widow, she's covered up. But you look at the versions now.
Oh yeah, dude, Power Girl.
That's fair. Yeah, that's true. So suggestive or salacious illustration or suggestive posture is unacceptable.
Again. Power Girl would have never existed in those days.
I mean, Keaton, I'm sorry, but Lady Death wouldn't either.
Oh, Purgatory would have been gone.
Purgatory, Vampirella, all of them out. The image would have never existed
at all. My goodness.
So, all right. Obviously, nudity. There's a couple one about that, and other about illicit activities, and then some other things that I'm not going to mention, just because they're strong words.
Okay.
But you get the gist of it.
Yeah, you can kind of get it.
So that's pretty much the code of authority. Like that's their rules list. Everybody adopted it, and they kind of get making comics because of it. Now, Silver Age, this is when you start to get like teams. This is when you start to get like the team ups and the big ones.
Right. So
the first one, you already said,
Justice League,
and the Justice League came out in 61. I had to think about that for a second.
Man. 61,
which is
I was negative 20 years old at that time.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, that's right. We're in the same. He's older than me still.
Oh no,
yeah, he is. So this is forever going to be an argument that I'll lose.
It probably will.
But yeah, so 61. That same year, something else happened.
In 61?
Yes. What happened in 61 that changed? Well, that changed a lot of stuff in comics.
Oh, I was about to say that like Coca-Cola stopped using cocaine.
Is that in 61?
I don't know, but it probably happened around that time frame.
Oops.
I don't know.
Sorry.
Something that changed the landscape of comics in 61.
Mm-hmm. Two individuals made a team. And then a company changed its name.
So we have to be talking about Jack Kirby and Stan Lee starting the Avengers.
Nope.
And
nope. The first family.
Oh, that's right. The Fantastic Four was actually the first like team up or big team.
Well, that was their first. So that was Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's first team. Yeah, that was their first introduction into Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics used to be, I think it was Atlas Comics. So it was what
something
was it?
Like that.
Timely Comics?
Okay, yeah. Which is why they use the whole Victor Timely thing in the MCU now. Sorry, didn't mean to spear off.
But no. So they started out in 1939 as Timely Comics, and then somewhere in the early 50s, people started referring to them as Atlas Comics, and then in 61 they changed to Marvel Comics, And that's when they hired Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and then they went on a freaking tear. You know, they did, like you said, they did Fantastic Four, they did the Avengers. 63, we get X-Men, and they just keep going.
Banger after banger
Yep.
after banger.
Yep, we all know how it goes. But oh shoot, 62. What happened to 62?
It's late, bro. Tell me.
It's late. It's not that late.
It's late to me.
Maybe it is a little late. Amazing Fantasy 15. Is it 15? I think it's 15.
Oh, yeah, the first Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I thought that was 62.
So Spider-Man, Hulk, Thor,
Namor. Namor was later on.
Yeah, later on, because Black Panther
later.
was also later on too.
Yeah. Well, his solo run was later on. His first appearance in Jungle Action happened pretty quick.
Well, fair. I think it was late 60s. But yeah, and I think in 63 is where the first, like, ASM, number one.
Should we be getting into other displays?
Yeah, let's do that.
Sorry. We've been holding on to Batman and the Creeper for a long time.
Well, you know, Silver Age.
But there were other comic book companies, of course, other than DC, that we need to be speaking about that were pivotal in the history of comic books. So, as we were already speaking about with Marvel Comics, Thor started off as a side character. Like, he wasn't even a featured individual. He started off in a book that just featured all types of supernatural or like extraterrestrial beings, and then apparently he gained popularity, and they just decided to give him his own book. They shut down the story he was in and turned it into his own book.
Well, he is going
nuts. If anybody hasn't realized yet, we have a cat in this shop, and he is a jerk.
He is going. I'm waiting for him to hop up there and knock it over.
I'm waiting for it too. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, and that's not gonna get cut out. No, not at all. But yeah, so
we one take this stuff, baby.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Doctor Strange, and then the Avengers, Iron Man, the Avengers. That was all 63. So they were busy. They were really busy.
You got to think these guys were like, there's no way they were just sitting on the toilet and they were like, oh my God, I found out like 18 characters right now.
They've been sitting on them for a little bit at least.
I would figure. Like they had to like navigate it. One day they were like shampooing their hair and they were like, Captain America. Oh, that sounds great.
No. They weren't washing their hair. They were.
Oh, yeah.
How do you come up with some of this stuff?
Now, the Hulk, I could see like a little bit of nose candy helped out with it. I get it,
but it's like, you know, it's one of those things where it's amazing, like people just sitting around and coming up with these characters. But now there was a lot of inspiration from historical characters and stuff like that,
right?
But still, like gamma radiation. You know, they sit around and do all that stuff. A lot of stuff was like came into existence in the Silver Age.
It's very true.
And then
radioactive spiders and such.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense.
You know,
X genes.
Well, it kind of like, because, you know, we had World War II and all that kind of stuff, and then like the early 60s, and I know the Cold War wasn't until later, but the threat of nuclear was probably there. Well, I'm sure it was, but that had to play a role in it.
Oh, I mean, you got to think they were always hearing about it on the news and everything like that. So of course, it probably, like, you would think to find some way to shift something that's naturally so glum and horrifying to think about, and you take it and you spin it to where it creates these characters that are saving people and thwarting evil. Like, so yeah, you know, it's probably one of the coolest things that any comic book creator probably could have thought about doing, was taking such a huge negative in an era and finding a way to make it good.
And that's when like comics really took off,
right?
Because there was a lot more heroes coming out. You know, you have a lot more origin stories, and you know, we talked about this earlier. You could relate to it. So you grasped onto a character, because there are people, we know people that you know, they absolutely love this character, but they don't like this character, and they're very similar. But it's because they relate to this one more than they do this person.
Yep.
Or this character rather. And I'm not saying that's happened like with all of them. Some just really like the characters, but there's always one you relate to.
Yeah, yeah, and I characters in that light. I feel like those types of fans, they like those are the ones that gravitate between Slade or Wade.
Yeah, yeah, and there's you got the DC and the Marvel aspect of it, but a lot of people like Spider-Man because of his backstory and his tragic backstory, and he's like this kid who becomes a hero, and he's got to learn and all this other kind of stuff, and a lot of people relate to that.
Right, and then a lot of people hated Robin, decided they wanted to kill him off by fan vote.
Yeah,
that works. It scans.
But yeah, so Silver Age. Towards the end of the Silver Age, we were talking about the comic code. They started dropping it, and
started
then
pulling back
from it, and then we start getting into the Bronze Age. So Bronze Age, depending on how you look at it, can either run from 70 to like 85, 86,
okay,
or 70 to like 80 to like early 80s, depending on how you look at it. I know that the standard is 85. But there's other things. There's other eras in there that a lot of people, because you have the main ones, and then there's like, depending on how you look at it, there's different eras.
Okay.
So Bronze Age, I don't really have a lot to talk about on Bronze Age.
But think about the Bronze Age. Like, think about one of your favorite comic book lines.
Why do you think
was heavily prevalent?
Where's it at?
During the Bronze Age.
Absolutely. Because that's when they got more like into the stories, and you could open up things, because they started talking about the things they didn't want them to talk about before.
Oh yeah, resurrection, aliens,
racism,
everything, bondage.
Like all of the
shout
things,
out to Cody.
It's all of the things that they didn't want to talk about before.
Right.
Now they start talking about it, and they're bringing it to light, and they're trying to make it more. What's the word I'm looking for? Is it prevalent?
Maybe less taboo.
Yeah, and that's when you kind of really get into the Bronze Age stuff, and obviously Claremont getting into X-Men. I think it was 90 early. Was it 96, 90, somewhere around there?
When Claremont took over?
Yeah, I think so.
That was late 80s is when Claremont and Byrne were running the show with the Uncanny X-Men. Because that was around the time that Claremont speared off and did the original Wolverine run. It was mid-80s.
But that was early 80s, wasn't it?
Mid-80s, early mid-80s.
Okay.
85,
Sorry,
86.
got my numbers wrong.
Man. You're good.
There's too many numbers,
man. Dude, you've been carrying this discussion the whole time. If I can add a little bit in there,
no, all for it. But yeah, like I'm supposed to be the X-Men guy, and screwed that up. Really, I'm like a fake X-Men. I don't have any.
Just a fanboy.
Yeah, I'm just a fanboy.
Everybody likes X-Men. I jump on X-Men. Magneto was right, by the way, people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But we couldn't say that in the Silver Age.
No, we couldn't. Not at all. Gloves were on then. Gloves were off in the Bronze Age.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, but going back to the Bronze Age, because you said earlier, when in your mind did the Bronze Age end?
To be honest with you, so as a kid, I didn't understand like the differences between Bronze Age like books and like what was considered at that time modern age books. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand because I still like personally, even to this day, only because I've understood who was writing, when they were writing, and when that line really sets.
Yeah,
I still find it really. There's a lot of gray area, man. Really, just so much with the stories, the characters that were going on. Like it was just so much. But if I'm gonna say like when did modern start up, I'd say like between 90 and 92.
Okay. And you're not wrong. there's more.
There's more.
There's more. There's always more.
Always.
So if you look at it, so there, you got bronze, and then some people think that there's a copper age.
Yeah,
But
even
Copper
Key
Age-
Collector acknowledges a
The-
Copper Age.
But the copper one is also the dark age, because talking about Frank Miller.
Thinking about when comic book companies were going down, and they're like, just do something,
Well,
hire
that's-
somebody.
because that's when the start of it was when Frank Miller did Batman, the Dark Knight Returns, something like that, and then Watchmen comes out, and then V for Vendetta comes out, and then you get these darker stories, and I think Punisher comes out somewhere around there.
Yep, Sin City.
But you start to see a darker side of comics. But then going back, it's so then you get to the 90s. And you could go modern then. But there's also Chrome. Some people consider the 90s Chrome. And then
What's
2000,
so Chrome about it?
Well, because
Besides X-Men Volume 2, what's in Spawn?
and Wildcats.
Just because we like Wildcats doesn't mean anybody out there likes Wildcats. Just saying.
If you like X-Men, you like Wildcats.
By default.
By default.
It's because it's the same characters, same artist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I get
They
it.
just got different names.
Yeah.
Spartan, Cyclops,
Same.
Warblade, Wolverine.
They're the same people.
Yeah.
Drifter, Gambit.
Yeah,
They're the same guy. Just one go wear a mask.
There's no road there though.
No, but I think she was blended into Voodoo with Psylocke.
To me, Voodoo was more Jean Grey, but yeah. And then you got Maul, and Maul is the Hulk. But
Well, I guess, yeah, Zealot could have been more Psylocke.
I don't know, Zilla, I never liked her.
She was weird.
She was weird. She was very high on her high horse.
Yeah, she was like Cyclops and Psylocke.
So I don't know. Anyway, we're getting to
We're
ramble.
way out. We're way out here.
So Chrome or modern, however you want to look at it. Also, I want to point this out that comic books got smaller as the ages go. They got smaller.
What do you mean they got smaller? You
They
mean
got
you
smaller.
talking about
The
run
size.
size? Oh, the size
The
of
actual
the comic.
physical size of it.
Yes, because if anybody actually collects books as a collector, you'll know that when you buy bags and boards, you have Golden Age, Silver Age, and modern sizes.
Mhm.
And they actually have current ones outside of modern, depending on the comic book company you look at.
Oh, that's true. That I've seen current. You're right.
And those are just thinner, and I don't get it. It's not like it changes anything. I feel like when I open a current book as opposed to a Silver Age book, I don't feel like there's so much difference.
But have you actually held it up to one?
No,
put
I
them
haven't.
together?
I haven't been dumb
I've-
enough to do that
I've-
yet.
I've-
I'll prove myself wrong.
I've been dumb enough to do it. But it does but if you try to fit a Silver Age book into a current or modern sleeve, it won't work.
It won't work.
It won't
It's all
work.
bunched up
Yeah.
and everything. Yeah, it's awful. It's
Um,
terrible.
But yeah, so I always buy silver.
It's
always.
the easiest way.
Yeah.
Because if you carry anything between that time frame,
Mhm.
between silver and now, that book will fit in that bag of board.
Yep, exactly. It looks nice too. They're all the same size.
It's beautiful.
OCD.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to the early 90s.
Right. Chrome.
Chrome.
What's that? Google Chrome? Google Chrome.
Google. Hey, yeah, shout out Google
Shout
Chrome, sponsorships.
We could use it.
Only Nerdy Dads.
Only Nerdy Dads. Got to corner it. Make it
Yes.
killer.
Hey, we'll put your logo on our website.
I'll put your logo on my butt cheek.
I wasn't gonna go that far.
I will. Anyways,
All right,
Chrome.
or modern. I mean, like I said, it just depends on how you look at it. But that can be, like the early, like when Jim Lee, does the reboot of X-Men.
Right.
X-Men #1 and that run that he has there, and then it gets into it where Image starts. McFarlane does his thing, Liefeld does his thing. You got all these major characters that are created in the early 90s, and
Right.
then they, off of their popularity, spin off a new Image. And then you have all these other companies that are starting to get bigger and more prevalent and more titles coming out, like Top Cow and all of that stuff.
Wildstorm.
Yeah.
Topps was still trying at that time. Yep.
So that's considered its own era because of that, and because that's when it like there was a boom, but there was a downfall.
Is that why everything was like foiled? Because I feel like during the Chrome period, everything had like a freaking foil cover.
Generation X,
Generation X. It had 17 different variants.
Exo Man of War.
Oh my god! any Valiant book back then had like 17 covers, and 16 of them were foiled.
Yep. I feel like the foil covers are making a comeback though.
They are,
like on all the reprints and stuff. They're all like foil covers and stuff like that.
But some of them look super clean.
Yeah, I have the Wolverine #1 reprint. Mm-hmm. That one was pretty nice. But yeah, so rambling again. So you got the modern age, Chrome age, however you want to look at it, and then that goes up to 2000, and then from 2000 on to present is considered the modern age,
right?
And for like now, but in 10 years, it's probably going to change to like the Prism age, or who knows. The holographic age.
Yeah, we'll be the holographic age.
Now,
our kids are extra as shit. We'll be
that's fair. That's fair.
We'll be the TikTok age.
No, please no.
It'll happen.
TikTok comments.
Giggle about it now, bro. I guarantee you in like 10 years on TikTok Shop, there'll be freaking comic books all over that damn thing.
Oh, I'm hoping 10 years TikTok won't be a thing anymore.
Oh, it will be.
It'll
be Facebook. All the old people will be on TikTok, and there'll be something brand new.
Yeah. What did he call it then? Anyway, we're going to give away
NerdyDads.
Only NerdyDads. Yes.
It's our copyright. Don't even.
Yep. We got this. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I got.
History of comics.
History of comics. Eras of comics. I mean,
so what you effectively did, and I sat here as the kid under the learning tree, almost 40 minutes worth of history of comic books. It's really ironic to me because I get to sit here when I'm actually in the shop, and I get to watch guests walk in, and it's usually parents and kids. Sometimes they're older people that come in, so on and so forth. But when they come in with those kids, it's all about like, this is what I used to read, and so on and so forth. Like, it's just so ironic because, like, I guarantee you, their parents were like, "Oh, these things, this funny book is not going to be worth anything."
Well, that's the other thing too. That was the boom of comics, and that was also the downfall of comics. Because like the late 80s, early 90s, and that whole time span, you had everyone and their mother like bam, 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 I want to buy 10 copies of this, 10 copies of this, 10. All of these are going to be worth something whenever I get 40 or 50 or whatever. So now you have the market has just been flooded with all of these, and very like they're not worth anything for the most part. Like you have some really big books like New Mutants 87, what was Deadpool's 98. You have those. You have Harley Quinn's first appearance.
Speaking of Deadpool.
Oh shoot, you got Deadpool. There's Deadpool.
Yep.
Wait. Talking about McFarlane and Image Comics. Spawn.
The big, like honestly, the one thing that came out of Image Comics that was a staple, because I feel like everything else kind of died. Darkness died. Witchblade died.
But see, but those weren't originally Image Comics.
No, they weren't. But they were adopted after the initial Image like run. Mm-hmm. But think of who was in the original Image run.
Well, yeah.
Outside of Spawn,
you had Savage Dragon. You had Cyberforce. You had was it Youngblood?
Yep. Youngblood, Strike Force.
Yeah. Brigade. Yeah, they really were. There was two characters. One was named Atlas and one was named Stronghold. Don't remember who they were, but they fought one another. I just remember them fighting.
I don't even remember those books.
It was Image. I'm pretty sure it was Image.
I would put it past it.
But
it's either that or Malibu.
Or Valiant. Could have been. Anyway, but that's the thing is like, and that was also like talking about like the collectability of all of this. That was the boom for Image. That's what got it started. It had the 3 hottest names, like comic book artists.
comics.
Yeah. So, they, of course, they're going to like explode in popularity. But like you said, they started to die off because, I mean, Wildcats, they had a big run and they had an animated series, but it still put them in.
It still existed.
Yeah, it still existed.
It was Image's way of trying to contend with the X-Men.
Of course, absolutely.
Hottest team.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And I mean,
they had theirs.
Yeah. During that time, that's when Spawn got his first HBO series original release.
Oh man, I forgot all about that.
That was probably one of the, outside of X-Men 97, and of course like the Fox cartoons we got, Spider-Man and the original X-Men run. Like the Spawn HBO series was probably like, that was innovative, dude. Like I think it made comic book companies think about their animation studio and be like, oh, we gotta fix this. And then look what DC did.
Yeah, DC's got a lot of stuff out there.
And with that being said, DC has the animated side on lock.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
MCU, like Marvel, may have the cinematic side.
For now, I don't know. I feel like they're falling off.
Well, I mean,
that's another conversation for another day.
It is, but they're going to compete against James Gunn, dude.
That's fair. That's fair.
They've got their work cut out.
But yeah, so I feel like that age of comics, that was like, it was, for us, that was a golden age.
Yeah, because we got everything.
Yeah, we got all this new stuff. We got all these, and they were more available. Because you could go into a grocery store and get comic books. You could go into, there were comic book shops popping up everywhere. Yep. There were also comic book like stands, and like you go into a gas station and
they had the little spinner rack.
Rite Aid, like
dude. I
remember Rite Aid.
I remember going in Montgomery Ward and by the registers that had spinner racks.
I don't think I ever went to Montgomery Ward.
Oh,
I shot there.
Bro.
Well, no. I had the catalogs. And flip me there and be like, here's my wish list for this year.
And then the Sears wish book came out.
God almighty. Yes. Oh, the days.
Right?
The days. But yeah, but then, like I said, everybody bought. And then it just went punk.
Well, you got to think, not only, so Marvel and DC were, in my opinion, they were super retroactive. Because they lost some of their biggest people to Image. Mm-hmm. Image started up, and they started pushing their stuff out. And at that time, think about it. That's when, like, leading into that, Jim Lee had already done X-Men, like at Volume 2, number 1. How many issues of that book were pressed? Think about the death of Superman.
Yeah.
How many books were pressed?
Yeah.
And Image faulted themselves because they knew that they were the hottest thing going, and they did exactly what the other two companies did. And they're like, oh, Spawn number 1, we're going to put out 30 million copies.
Yep. And you're not wrong.
I feel like it's only because Todd kept his relevance as long as he did, that Spawn is still worth what it's worth.
No, I agree. But he branched off into like other things too.
And dude, like, come on. Like the DC multiverse figures are chef's kiss to an action figure collector.
Yep.
Gorgeous. But another discussion.
Yep. We'll get there.
So that's really, like, that should catch everybody up.
In the reality, yeah. There's obviously a lot of things in there that could be thrown in, like, the first appearance of Miles Morales and all that kind of stuff, just to kind of give each era its own thing, like, because really from the gold and silver and bronze, they were very distinct, which is why when you get to like 85 and on, that you get those, like, okay, there's a copper, there's a dark, there's a chrome, because then it gets more like, well, because early 90s, you could also say that they all reinvented themselves and started over.
For the most part, I would agree with that statement. With that being said, you got to think during that time frame, you got to think of some of the heroes that were like that became prevalent. We were catching the back end of Black Panther and Luke Cage during that time, and then we get introduced to characters like Black Lightning. We get introduced to characters Miles Morales. Like a lot of angry fanboys, and I'm going to say it like this just because that's the way I actually feel about it, get really upset about inclusion.
Yeah.
Like James Rhodes was introduced during this time frame. Like there are so many now prevalent, like super important characters that were released, and back then everybody hated them. Falcon, when Falcon first released, nobody cared about Falcon.
Yeah. Well, that's why they had to team him up with Captain
With Cap, to make him relevant.
Yeah. No, I could.
And he was just a side guy.
Yeah.
But now look at him.
Yeah.
He's Cap.
Yeah, but I don't know. I get when they start talking about like the different branches of like reality and everything, and they start talking about like the different versions, that's when things get convoluted for me.
In a sense, yeah. But who did the multiverse first?
Well, I mean, you're talking about DC and everything, but I'm just saying, just in general, you know, for me, I feel like you take one character and then they split them off in like 13 different ways, and it's hard to keep up with them.
It's very difficult, but you got to think all they really did is they took what was probably a budding idea in Marvel at the time and just turned it on its head. Because that's all the multiverse theory and concept is all just a giant what if.
Yeah, that's true.
So I mean, like when Marvel, because DC brought out the multiverse first, as much as I don't want to say it, they did. But Marvel was the ones that took it, and they're like, okay, well, you guys introduced this multiverse, but what if this character did this? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dexter.
First appearance.
Yes. Issue 1, first appearance of Dexter on camera. Hi, buddy. Hi. Yeah, I know. We're here past your bedtime.
Oh, no, it is past his bedtime.
It's okay. He'll live. But, so they basically turned it on its head, and they're like, okay, well, we'll just give them individual stories. It could take place in the same continuity, or it could be in a totally separate universe, but we're going to be ambiguous to that.
But I'm glad you brought that up, because that's going to segue into issue number 2.
It is.
So, yeah, no, I mean, that pretty much like wraps up my knowledge of the errors.
The Patrick learning tree has concluded, ladies and gentlemen.
This is it. That's all you get. There's no more like any other issues. It's just I'm gonna listen to you.
No, he's not. No, he's not. He's gonna have a bunch to say in the later issues.
Never.
But you know what? That's the best thing about Only Nerdy Dads is the fact that it's just a giant learning tree, because there's so much that, as a comic book shop owner, that I've learned from the guests that come into my shop. I've learned more from you than I probably really needed to about X-Men. I thought I knew enough, and I didn't. But like every guest that walks in, Keaton teaches me a lot about horror. I think he's probably my biggest horror asset, because I didn't know a whole lot about horror. What I thought was horror wasn't horror, except for American Werewolf in London. But every one of you guys that comes in through these doors, I get Jason that comes in. He talks to me about Spider-Man all the time. Mm-hmm. Cody comes in, talks to me about Venom. So it is like Nerd U is just basically just a giant learning tree, man. Like that's what we're here for. We're here to educate. We have fun with everybody. Everybody plays with Dex a little bit,
and this is what he does. Then he
goes to sleep afterwards.
Yeah.
But so no, every issue from this point forward, I guarantee will be more of a collective effort. I wung it on this entire issue, and I hope I was relatively coherent. But it was super important for us to do this issue.
Oh, absolutely. Because it does. It's that history lesson. It's kind of an introduction into just the different eras of comics, how they came to be and all that kind of fun stuff. Granted, we could have really dove into it and made this a very long episode.
And I'm glad we did.
But we hit some key points.
So, ladies and gentlemen, take issue 1 of Only Nerdy Dads as a legend, if you were to the map that you're about to get across, I would say, like, nerd fandom.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because we're gonna do more than just comics. We're gonna anything that we can pull some knowledge into.
Or maybe not even knowledge into it all.
I mean, yeah, we'll pull a guest in and then have them, school us on some stuff, and then we'll ask questions.
I think that'd be really good. I think everybody, like anybody else, I think would probably be in the same seat that we would be in some of the situations.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think it would be great. So, Patrick, thank you for taking the time, sitting with me this evening in Dex, talking about comics and the history of comics. You really did teach me a lot about the Comic Authority. There were things about the authority, the guidelines and rules that I had no idea about. So,
and it was fun to me. Like I said, researching it, there were things I didn't know, and I learned some stuff. There were things I knew, but then you start researching and digging that, and it's like, that's very interesting. I don't know. I know that's nerdy right there.
It's very.
That's
nerdy.
Very interesting.
That's very nerdy.
Only nerdy
Only
dads.
Nerdy Dads. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you so much for joining us on our first issue of Only Nerdy Dads. I'm Matthew.
I'm Patrick.
Thank you, and good night.
Peace.